So for our warm-up protocol, we're starting with joint mobilization, and the first thing we're going to be doing is our joint opener series. We have 5 rotations each way, both internal, external, or left and right. So we're going to start with the ankles, as you see here, and then you're going to move to your knees. And while you're making these rotations, you're trying to think about getting the most range of motion or creating the biggest circles possible. Now we're going to move to our hips. With this one, I want you to think of really trying to draw big circles with your hips so you can start to warm up the hip flexors, the glutes, and you'll feel a big stretch in the hamstrings as well. Then we're going to be moving on to the shoulders here a second. So you're going to bring them up and around, trying to get as big of a circle as possible. So going backwards, then forwards. Take these slow. We don't want to go super fast with these. You want to be able to depress your shoulders, bring them up and down. Now we're going to move into the elbows, outwards for 5 reps, and then inwards. You're not going to be able to get a huge amount of mobilizations left and right, as the elbow is a hinge joint, but we're going to try to open it as much as possible. Now, for the joint rotations, I want to put your arm down at a 90-degree angle by your side. Try to keep your palm up as you rotate your hands in and out. Really, again, trying to create as much of a big circle as possible throughout that joint. And then finally moving on to the neck. So for the neck, if you find a tight spot, go ahead and stay there for half a second. You're really trying to stretch out the traps. And if you have tension headaches or anything like that, you're going to feel that pull in a lot of different directions. So if you find those tight spots, make sure that you stay there for a second to really open it up. So you'll go either to the left or the right for 5 circles, and then the other way. Now we're moving on to the thoracic spine opener. So this is essentially like a standing cat-cow if you've ever done that. So you're rounding those shoulders forward, pressing out in front of you, really trying to lengthen and open and stretch that back, and then you're pulling your chest together. You're opening up your chest and you're squeezing your mid back as tight as possible. Now moving on to the lateral reach. We're going 5 each way, so you pretend that your hips down are planted and you're just shifting from your belly button up, and as you reach, you're going to go ahead and alternate palm up with the hands. Then we're moving on to the wide stance press backs plus rotation. So get a nice wide stance, point those toes forward. Try to keep your back flat as much as possible. Press back, get a nice stretch in the inner hamstrings. If you can drop down and go a little lower, that's great. Moving into the rotations, you'll just stay right in that position, and then you're going to try to rotate all the way up so you're creating a straight line from that bottom hand all the way up. Rotate at the torso. Don't just throw your hands back. As you can see, I'm trying to rotate my torso to make that straight line. Now, moving into the second phase, which is our dynamic range of motion, we are starting with the perfect stretch. So you're taking a nice big long lunge step, keeping that knee in line with the ankle, in line with the hip as much as possible, reaching the same side arm down, and then turning into the same side leg. So here I'm taking a right step, right elbows goes down, and then I turn and open and reach my right hand to the sky. So you're going to continue this for 5 total reps on each leg, one right after the other. As you can see, I'm rounding my back here a little bit to try to get down further. Ideally, you'd want to have a little bit straighter back, but you got to do what you got to do right now. As you become more mobile, you will have a flatter and flatter back throughout the time. So, finishing up these perfect stretches. And moving on to the walking quad lunge plus rotation. So get a nice stretch for the quad, get into a lunge, and then rotate into that same side leg that you take a step forward. So nice big long lunge step, turn, rotate, get the little extra stretch in that opposite side hip flexor. Here's what it'll look like in continuous motion. And when you're doing the lunge, make sure that you're driving up, pressing up through that midfoot and pulling your hips through up at the top. Alright, moving into the inchworm squat. So trying to keep a flat back and straight legs, you're going to walk your hands down like if you're doing a normal hamstring stretch. And then you're simply going to walk your hands forward, do a push up, and then do a squat. So for here, bending down, reaching is just a hinge pattern, walking your arms forward, push up to hit a little chest engagement, and then you're walking your feet up in as straight leg as possible. If you have a little bend, it's alright, but we're trying to keep a straight leg. So hinge pattern, walk forward, push up position, push up, walk those legs forward, grab your heels, drop into a deep squat. If you want, you can pry open your hips there before moving into the overhead squat. Now, when I'm in that bottom position and I'm raising my arms overhead, we're working on shoulder mobility and keeping a back flat as we drive up. We don't want to stay in that bottom position with a rounded back, so throwing our hands up overhead is going to help increase our shoulder mobility and also help increase our spine alignment as we drive up out of that bottom position for a squat. Now we're moving on to the pigeon stretch push-ups. So all we're going to do is get in that pigeon stretch. So a bent knee about 45 degrees, toes pointed up on that bent knee. We're keeping our hips square and we're really stretching that glute. Now I want you to use your arms to help slow your descent down while keeping a straight back. That's going to put a lot more stretch on the glutes. As you can see, I have a little bit of thoracic bend or mid-back bend. Ideally, you'd want to be as straight as possible. And then for a 3-second count down and then press up. So my left glute is definitely tighter than my right, but that's why we're doing these every single day. We'll become more open and open and open and more flexible and more mobile. So we have 5 on each leg with a 3-second descent. Now we're going to move into the frog stretch press backs. So you can see I spread my legs out nice and wide. We're going to get a huge stretch in our adductors and our groin area. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be pressing back, trying to really get into deep squat position. And then I'm going to bring my hips forward and almost like the end of a hip thrust. That's going to help stretch out the hip flexors in that position. This will help really open you up for any squat patterns, any lunges, anything like that. If you have low back pain, this will also help as well. So I'm pressing back as deep as I can, trying to maintain a flat back and not round. Then I'm coming through, pushing my hips through, a slight arch in my back, really emphasizing that stretch. So you want to take a 3-second hold at the bottom and the top position before pressing back and moving forward. Now we're going to stay in that frog stretch position and we're going to move into alternating shoulder pass-throughs. So I'm simply crossing my hand over and then I'm trying to get my tricep to the floor as I stretch my lats and my shoulder out. If you watch my hands, you'll probably see me like crawling with one of the hands. That's because I'm really trying to get a deep stretch with that. And you can see from the side profile when we go, I will actually drop my hips back a little bit to really emphasize the overall stretch of our side, our obliques, and our lats as we go. So just look right here. And then I'm really trying to drop and pull myself back to get a massive lat stretch. So you want to hold for 3 seconds at that bottom position. And then we're going to move into the overhead press down. So you're still staying in that frog stretch position. And then you're going to press or pull yourself down as far as you can so that you're trying to make a straight line from your hands up through your arms, through your neck, and into your back. What I want you to do, where I want you to put your attention, is your mid-back. I want you to pretend there's like a triangle in your mid-back, and I want you to squeeze that as much as possible at that bottom position. You'll really feel that mid-trap light up. This is going to help with your overhead positioning and open you up. Now we're going to move into the priming exercises. We have our posterior chain glute and hamstring priming exercises. So the first one is the banded good morning. You're going to step on through that, perform the hinge pattern, keep your lower abs braced, pull yourself up and through with your glutes. So you can see I'm squeezing my glutes at the top. Now we're going to move into hip circle or monster walks. So with this band, you're going to put them at the bottom cross. Keep your knees out. Don't let your knees cave in. You'll go lateral, you go right, short choppy steps. This should fire your glutes up, forward and backward. The deeper the squat position, the better. Now we're going to move into the hip circle. So this is actually my preferred method if you have a hip circle, but if not, you can totally use the bands. Place it just above the knees, get in that semi-squat position, knees out, short choppy steps, almost pretending like you are on a saddle of a horse. You don't want your knees caving in. Now we're going to move into hip circle or banded glute bridge. Just put that band above your hip and then get yourself flat against the floor. Bring your knees up as close as you can to your butt. Lift your toes up so you're driving through your heels. And that is going to help you engage your glutes and your hamstrings more. So drive up, like a 1 second squeeze at the top. Now we're going to move into our sprinter stance iso glute activation. So you're going to get up on your toe, a nice 45-degree angle, drive up, flex your calf, bring that other leg up as much as possible, and squeeze that glute as hard as you can. Moving on to the kettlebell swings. Real quick, I want you to think all gas with the glutes and the hips, and then your abs and your lats are the braking. Now, we're single leg hip thrust. So keep that opposite leg in line with your other quad, and then drive up through the heels, putting the majority of your focus, if not all your focus, on that hamstring and glute. Now moving into the mid-back lats. In rear delt, we have the band pull apart complex. So you're going to start off lower just below your chest for 5 reps. Really try to stay off your traps. We want to engage rear delts, mid-back. Then you're going to raise it up to about a 45-degree angle for 5 reps, pulling down and back. And then a little bit higher, pulling down and back. And then lastly, we're going to get overhead all the way. We get more. This will help open up your shoulders, open up your chest, and while engaging the lats as well. Now we're moving into the lat activation drill. So this is an advanced one. You'll probably need some more explanation, but you can see my feet. You have one foot pointing perpendicular to the band and one pointing in line with it. You're going to cross step them over, big open chest, and then open your palm up and draw that elbow to your hip pocket. That is going to light your lower lats up. Now moving into the banded row. This is simple. You can do this bent over with a banded at your feet or attached to a rig like this. Pulling, squeezing your mid-back, really trying to warm up your rear delts, mid-traps. Moving into the banded straight arm pull down. Everything in a nice line, arms nice and wide, 1 second hold at the back. Banded face pulls. Draw your elbows out wide, squeeze your mid-back as much as possible. You'll probably feel this in your rear delts a little bit. Now we're doing banded landmine row. So the setup is a band attached to the rig, and then you're going to stagger stance and pull with the opposite arm. As you can see, I'm rotating a little bit. That's going to help get some obliques in there, and then I'm really firing that lat. Now moving on to our anterior chain, so our quads and our adductors. We have banded squats. So screw your feet into the floor, drop down, and drive up through your midfoot. Really try to put the emphasis on your quads and your glutes. Try to stay as upright as possible and a flat back as much as possible. Same positioning, dropping down. This is just like a max vertical jump, except you're not going full effort. You're just doing an explosive squat. Moving into Cossack squats. So this is a nice wide stance. Grab a kettlebell or dumbbell, place it in that front rack position. Knees out, dropping side to side, trying to keep your chest as upright as possible, getting a nice deep stretch on the adductors. If you need to pop that heel up, go ahead and do so. So I'm going to be going to my right and then to my left. If I needed to pop that right heel up to help, you could do that. Goblet squats, everything's the same as a normal squat. Maybe you'll have your feet slightly wider, toes pointed out. Really trying to get depth as much as possible with this. Now we're moving into banded lateral jumps or skater jumps. So just put that band about hip height and then go quicker for your lateral jumps. You want to be pressing off out the outside of your foot so then you can drive and then land again. So it's an appropriate push and landing as well, but they're meant to be quicker and faster pace. Then we have banded broad jump. So put that again at hip height, and then you're gonna drop down, jump as far as you can, land, control yourself, step back. You might need to have a little bit of a forward lean when you land, or else that band is really gonna pull you back. But you're trying to load and explode and really get your hips through. Now lastly, we have our chest and shoulders. So we're doing banded push-ups. Make sure you have that band low around your back so it doesn't snap you in the back of the neck. And these are quick, they are fast. We are screwing our hands into the floor to really get massive engagement. Now we're moving to banded press down. Same thing, quick, explosive. If you need a heavier band, go ahead and do so. Med ball floor pass. These are again, quick, explosive. This is not meant to be lackadaisical. Not lastly, but we have wall slides. Keep your abs super tight with this. You're really going to see your shoulder mobility and the overall flexibility of your shoulder joint and your lats. So you're slowly bringing your hands up, and then you're drawing them down out wide, trying to keep your shoulder blades, your elbows, and your wrist all on the wall. So I'm squeezing my lats to bring them down and then pressing up overhead. Now we have landmine presses. So it's a stagger stance wrapped around the top of the barbell and opposite side foot. Everything is in a line. My core is tight, and then I'm driving up and shooting my hand forward. Then you'll simply switch and perform the repetitions again. Again, be quick, be explosive. You'll get chest, your shoulder, and your triceps involved in this. That's it.